Well, good morning, everyone. It is Tuesday, August the 19th, 2014. A lovely foggy morning here in Indianapolis. Expecting the temps to actually increase for the next few days. We're actually going to be in the 80s, possibly getting close to the 90s for the first time, I think, this summer. But then it's going to drastically drop back down into the 70s, which is fine with me. I prefer it to hang around 75, 78 degrees, but whatever. Expect some storms later this afternoon. Now we have echo. But anyways, some storms. Keep your eyes to the skies. Pay attention to what is going on out there around you, and keep your behinds safe. Would hate to lose any of you. Have gotten used to you now in all your quirkiness, and much appreciate you. Good morning to everyone in the chat room this morning. Jane, good to see you this morning. I asked for people to bring coffee, even though I don't drink it. I do like to smell it. So let's see if we can get some unusual scents in here this morning. But Jane, Mom, JJ, oh, that's me, and a few Anons this morning. So good morning. And let's get this show rolling here. So, my guest this morning, I'm quite excited about. He is one fantastic author, and you know how I like my authors. Lots of great information they glean from their books. But I finished one book called The Jakarta Pandemic a couple weeks ago, actually. And, you get caught up in life. But I just, here in the last week, have started his second book. And I might be reading these completely out of order because he has a ton of them. And I want to make sure I get through every single one of them. I think it's called The Preside Collapse is the book that I'm on now. And totally probably hacked how that is said. But I want to welcome to the show this morning. Steve, are we going to call you Steve or Steven?
Steve is fine.
Steve is fine. And how do you pronounce your last name properly?
There's about 100 different pronunciations.
I was afraid of that.
They're all right. No, Conkley. Conkley is fine.
Yeah. Easy enough.
Yep.
Steve Conkley. See, I would have hacked the hell out of that already this morning. But thank you for being up this early in the morning. A lot of people don't like the pre-dawn hours.
I'm up early. Very early.
But greatly appreciate you being here with us this morning. So, first book I read of yours was The Jakarta Pandemic. And awesome book, by the way.
Thank you.
And in the preparedness world, which is where we live in, I think there is a ton of great information in there. And I've actually used your book on our show that you're going to be back for tonight called Conflicted, our After Dark show, and use that for some questions up on our website. Because you bring up some questions, and I've been barking about this for probably over a year now, is why don't you talk about the personal responsibility that a human has out there to take care of themselves instead of waiting for the government to tell you what to do. Case in point, we had the horrible snows, the blizzards and stuff and the ice storms through the South, and people waited until the local meteorologist or the government or, the school principal decided to shut the school down in order to keep their children home. And they sent them to school anyways, or they went to work anyways. And we saw roads clogged. We saw children stranded at school overnight because of the fact they couldn't make it home because of the weather. When does personal responsibility play in that? Because you bring that up in the book, and I think it's awesome.
Right. That's one of the toughest aspects, I think, of preparedness is when, especially in the context of the Jakarta pandemic and a pandemic, like when do you take your kids out of school? When do you take 2 or 3 weeks of unplanned, emergency leave or vacation? It's not easy. Leaving. A lot of people don't have the option of just calling in and saying I'm not coming into work, or especially when it's not backed up, like you said, by the meteorologists and the government. That's a really tough call, but, it's your safety, it's, your family, your children's safety. I couldn't imagine having one of my kids stuck in a school, in a gymnasium or cafeteria for a day or so, not even being able to get to them. and they're only like 4 miles away. I mean, I'd be on my feet in snow gear, making my way over there. But in Georgia, people don't have snow boots and the kind of things we have up here in Maine. I mean, I could ski over the cross country ski over there, snowshoe, any of a number of things. It's a really tough call, but I think it's just kind of stepping out of what we're kind of taught to do, which is sort of obey or at least listen and take a lot of stock in what the authorities are saying, and maybe just kind of stepping up and doing something a little earlier.
I think you bring up a good point. We're taught to obey, and it's hard for us to step out away from that. You feel guilty,
right? Right.
But you're looking at you have a pandemic in your book, but I think a lot of people have been running scared the last few weeks with this Ebola crisis that's going on. How do you think it's going to affect us here? Do you think it's going to spread more, or what's your opinion on it?
I've been getting a lot of questions. That's one of the most popular email questions. Yeah.
Are we all going to die?
Yeah. And I think, my official, though, my wife's an attorney, so she would always caution me not to make an overly definitive statement, I guess you would say. That's lawyer talk. Yeah. But I can't, based on the way Ebola is spreading and just the dynamics of the Ebola virus itself, it hasn't changed, or mutated much from, the strains they've seen over the last 20 years. It's really hard to spread. It doesn't spread very well. Think of Africa now. It is the worst possible place for a virus like this to emerge. It's crowded. Healthcare is, it's lacking, and people have weird ideas about how this disease is spread. And I've read some accounts where they think if you just say the word Ebola, it could manifest in a village. So, you're really dealing with like a worst case scenario where if you want to drop something that's super contagious, it would go everywhere. And it's not. It's, they have, I think, 1,300 maybe or 1,100 confirmed deaths, and they're pushing 2,000 cases. It's not a lot. We have more cases, more deaths in the United States due to seasonal flu in a given week during peak flu season than this. So if it did make it over here, I don't think it would go anywhere.
Gotcha. Well, I know there was a news broke yesterday about some chick in New Mexico, I think it was. But do you think we're getting besides the panic that's going on with it, where we've seen it, this person has it, they're being tested, and this one, do you think we have a good case of like Ebola envy going on? Let's see if we can get it first.
Ebola. That's a great term. I'm gonna have to use that. Maybe. I could imagine people think they have it, or maybe I can't imagine you'd want to have it if you knew what it did to your body, and
yeah.
The prognosis is not good no matter where you are. It's way better if you're here, in a kind of a modernized healthcare system. But either way, it's yeah.
I don't know. There were a lot of people concerned when we brought the doctor over to Atlanta.
Yes. Yeah.
A lot of. It was split right down the middle. Oh my goodness, how are you going to do that? And and I questioned it myself. Why couldn't we put him on a ship or on an island or, someplace where we can contain it if it just happens to break loose versus bringing him here. And now the poor guy, I feel bad for him because he's going to be forever known. His face has been splashed across every newspaper out there. If he even goes out, he's going to be, finger pointed and everything else. Don't talk to him. He's got to...
Yeah, he's Ebola man.
Yeah, exactly.
No, it's... you kind of hit on an aspect that's really important, especially in the preparing. It spans the whole prepper world, and it is the hype and kind of maybe misunderstanding of how some of these things work. And I did a ton of research for Jakarta Pandemic. Way more than I should have. That was before I really knew anything about writing. And the amount I needed to do. So I was pretty much a self-prescribed expert. And when I saw the Ebola thing breaking out, I wasn't concerned, especially when they were shipping them here. I'm like, they're sending them to Emory University to a premier facility, where they can really handle this stuff. I mean, he's living in a bubble basically. So.
Oh my goodness, though! But they drove him in an ambulance, and there was no Secret Service, and there was no, like you said, no bubble around it, and they stopped at stoplights and stuff. For heaven's sakes!
I mean, honestly,
kill us all.
Right, don't get within 300 feet of the convoy. Yeah, I know. I mean, honestly, he could probably just come back, gone about his normal life, as long as he wasn't, kissing his wife and children good night, and he probably wouldn't infect anyone. It's just not that contagious.
Well, we're going to have you back tonight to play Conflicted, so we'll be posting lots and lots of questions from your book, I can imagine. But joining us tonight is a chickie. Her name's Kat. She's the herbal prepper, so she's going to bring some medical expertise. I think she did stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night, so we should be covered on that part of it.
Cool. Yeah. No, that's good. We're big. My family, we're big believers in some more naturopathic remedies.
Awesome.
Expensive ones you buy at the organic foods. But I'm not making them myself.
So you're actually one of us. Are you? Would I term you as a secret closet prepper, or do you talk about it openly?
And I talk about it more openly than I ever did. So you would be shocked to hear this, but when I wrote the Jakarta Pandemic, and through about a month or so after publishing it, I had never heard the word prepper before. I was familiar with the word survivalist, but I did no research to prepping websites or forums or anything when I wrote this book. That's why I say, like, prepping is a lot of common sense.
Yeah.
But there's so much more. If I wrote this book today, knowing what I know now, it would probably be very different, and maybe it wouldn't be as good. I don't know, because there are some flaws in what the characters do, and kind of the way that they set up their quarantine compound. It'd be a lot more detail oriented if I did it today, but it's a lot of common sense, and I don't think people realize that.
No, because they want to get into oh my goodness, the aliens are coming, we're going to be blasted with, meteors, and we're all going to die, and we wear tinfoil all day, and, thanks to a few TV shows out there. But unfortunately, we're just everyday kind of normal people just trying to survive, Yeah.
No, it's like you said, I mean, if you're talking about the personal responsibility, if everyone just kind of did the basics and, stockpiled or just had basic first aid supplies, maybe 2 to 4 weeks of food. It's not easy. I understand there are people just not in a position where they can afford to do that. But having something so everyone doesn't have to rush out and stress the system, so to say, it would make a massive difference.
Well, you do have a lot of preparedness information in the book itself, but from what I understand, you wrote a whole or co-wrote, maybe, a whole nother preparedness book specifically about preparedness. Do you want to talk about that for a little bit?
Sure. I wrote, so this is, it hasn't been published yet. I'm working on it with Randy Powers of Practical Tactical, and he's served as a prepper consultant on books. He reached out to me to do an interview, like a year and a half ago, and so I kind of run the manuscripts by him just to make sure I'm not totally. I mean, fiction, so some things are going to get stretched, but just to kind of make sure it's not insane. I like things relatively as realistic as possible. And so this is going to be coming out, and hopefully at the end of this month. And it's an essay style. We take about 20-something topics. Everything is, things from like, grounding yourself, whether in faith or however you can ground yourself, all the way to like simple things like food and water and shelter. And each of us will have an essay written in a different style, so it'll hopefully appeal to different people or to everyone.
Oh, that sounds interesting. Good. I'll try and keep an eye out for it. Or not try. I will do it.
Yeah, I mean, mine will be written in my style, which is kind of I'm a little more humorous, a little drier humor, and his is he has a wealth of information on this. So his is people will be reading his for the information, and mine kind of a comedy relief maybe.
You mean there's humor in preparedness?
There can be.
Well, I know I got flack when we were talking about the Mayans and stuff in 2012,
Oh,
and
no.
I'm like, oh, we need a badge for this, and we'd have a whole vest full of I survived this, and it's like that's not what we're about. We're about every day, the economy falling, you lost your job, you're out sick, just those kind of things, as opposed to, you know, aliens visiting or
Right.
something along that line. But yeah, can you imagine if we had a badge for every end of the world scenario the media has hyped up?
Yeah, no, and in this book that I co-wrote with Randy, I stress what I call your what if survival, your what if scenario. What am I trying to survive? And it's not. It's like you said. It's not the United Nations black helicopters combined with an alien.
Well, I don't know. Watch St. Louis right now, and I would question
that. Yeah, you have a good point. Yeah, it's the survive what scenario. Like for me here in Maine, I mean, really, if I'm set for maybe a week or two without power during the winter after a huge storm, where you can't really get out or you shouldn't.
It's kind of normal, isn't it?
No, yeah, you think it is, but it's not as common. It's not as common as you think here. But that's my scenario. That's my most common, most likely survival scenario, and I'm focused my efforts on that. And when that's covered, then I can move on to, societal collapse and being able to create a Mad Max car and drive off west.
And you're one of the, and I won't even say that I've attempted to read every post-apocalyptic book out there, but it seems like most of the ones that I've read lately have happened on the left coast as opposed to where you're at. So it's nice to read something from our side of the Mississippi. That's
right.
Sure.
Well, I think I was going to say I think I think it's on purpose that it's most of it's happening on the left coast because there's a lot of potential problems out there. I would say earthquakes, drought, and I think a lot of the writers just don't like the left coast. So.
Oh, so they're intentionally blowing it up? See,
intentionally blowing it up. Yeah, I do.
See, the ones I've talked to, they actually live there, and I thought that's why it happened. But I mean, you might have a point there. They just don't like anything.
Yeah, well, I think it's funny. I think a lot of the post-apoc authors kind of write about where they live. I think you're right about that. Maybe that's because you see like guys like A. American and Joe Nobody. They were definitely writing about areas they're familiar with, like in the central, like kind of Texas, down in that area. Whereas David Forsythe, he wrote one that's obviously dealing with the West Coast. So yeah, maybe you're right. That's just my conspiracy theory coming out.
See, tinfoil is showing up.
Oh yeah.
So how did you get started writing? How long ago? And what brought you into more of a post-apocalyptic genre?
So Jakarta is my first book. I published it in 2010. I started writing that in probably 2007, maybe late. It took me a long time to write that one just because I had no schedule. I was working a full-time job. This is before I discovered that getting up at 4 a.m, was actually doable and very productive.
And you would live through it?
Yeah, and I'd live through it. I mean, of course, I wasn't staying up till 11 anymore, wasting my time watching TV. But no, it's kind of become an ingrained habit, so I still do it today. Yeah. But anyways, So I always loved. I read The Hot Zone a number of years ago. That was about the first Ebola outbreak, which basically makes this one makes that one look like nothing. And I was fascinated by the whole topic of pandemic type of viruses. So that had always stuck in my mind, and I wanted to write a book along those lines. And I just decided to do it. I just started out, I did a lot of research, kind of delaying and procrastinating actually writing anything. And when I finally did, I loved it. And it's
All right, let's try this one more time. Let me check with the chat room and make sure we're here. Hello, hello.
Yep.
We have a time delay here for a second. Good morning, Sharon, Jane, everybody in the chat room. All right. Yep, looks like we're good to go. So, back to the question. Pandemics brought you into writing, and we're thankful for that. But do you have any advice for being ready for a pandemic?
Yeah, I do. Like I said, I like to keep things really, really simple. And I just actually wrote a pandemic primer for this collaboration book because I figured it was appropriate, and a number of people asked me. But I mean, the biggest thing you can do, the most important thing is early detection. Trying to figure out when and if and when this is going to happen. That's the key to it, because obviously it doesn't do you too much good to be in your house when your kids are coughing, haven't caught it from school, and it's the most difficult part of the whole thing, because then you get into taking your kids out of school when maybe the virus is in London. I study this stuff I look at it pretty extensively, not in a paranoid way, but I mean, there's only a certain number of types of viruses out there that we know about, and they all behave pretty common. I say pretty commonly. I mean, the avian flu is almost always, it's kind of stuck in Asia. It really doesn't get out of there. If I started seeing reports of avian flu in Paris, London, some of those areas, I'd be pretty worried. That would raise my alarm level pretty high. So there's no magic. Unfortunately, we're not like Alex Fletcher, where you have your best friend or a friend of yours is the infectious disease head at your local hospital. That would be ideal, right?
One would think. Yeah. I don't know. I kind of steer away from hospitals as much as I can.
Right. Well, right. So, that's the most difficult aspect. But more practical things, I mean, you just need to plan to be self-sufficient and self-contained for, I think, at least a 2 to 4 week period. I would stress 4 weeks. I mean, most of the pandemics, we haven't gone through one. I mean, we don't know. But they're slow moving. I mean, I try to portray that in the book, where it's not like 28 days later, or some of these very popular post-apoc kind of rampage virus stories. It's not going to happen like that. It's going to be very slow. One person in your neighborhood maybe, but when it starts to get into full swing, having the supplies and willingness to kind of quarantine yourself for that 2 to 4 week period is going to be key.
And your book takes place, in a suburb. So you bring into the forefront a lot of the emotional and, the aspects of dealing with, a close-knit group of people. A lot of places, when I moved here to Indianapolis, one of the first things when I enrolled my child into public school back then, one of the first things they asked me is, what suburb, what, development do you live in? And I'm like, what are you talking about? I said, I live in a house along a road. And they're like, everybody lives in a development. Right. And I'm like, oh, well, I don't. So she looked at me kind of funny, like, what do you mean you don't? Everybody does. And so we had to work through that. I mean, it was weird because they had issues finding the correct school bus for him because everybody lives in a development. And but you bring that whole aspect into, the main character, the family in the book. They're not set up in a deserted farm in Idaho or something like that. It's real life, in your face. This is what you're going to have to deal with. And one of those, and we could talk about this tonight, is the whole personal responsibility part. But on top of that, I can't really say because it's going to give away too much in the book. Well, maybe not. You deal with the neighbors. Okay, so you've known these people forever, as long as you've lived there, and they have kids that go out and they play with your kids, and the parents ended up, let's say they were in the hospital or something happened to them. So these kids end up, they can't stay, they can't go to the hospital because there's a very good chance they're going to catch it. but it's questionable whether or not these preteen kids have it.
Sure.
So what do you do with them? As travel is down, the grid is down because everybody's sick, so nobody's there to man the electricity and public transportation or anything like that. These kids can't drive. They can't get to relatives. There's no phone service. It's the community's, is it their responsibility to take care of them? And then how do you deal with that within your community?
Right. No, it's that's just one of like probably 100 scenarios that come up in that book. Difficult scenarios because it's right. I mean, I'm a very compassionate person, but I'm extremely practical. Very pragmatic, and I'm not going to let someone in my house in a scenario like that. I'm not letting someone in my house that could potentially,
no matter what their age is.
Right, that can infect my family. I mean, there are other ways to deal with that are not ideal. And like you see in the book, I did take some flack from a number of reviewers who thought it was just kind of unconscionable that taken in. I won't review any more than that. But the actions taken, I think, are very realistic. It's what I would do. You're providing for basic. You're not exposing yourself.
Well, we've talked about that a few times on here. It's doing what we do, especially when we play Conflicted at night after dark. We've brought up the fact that, a lot of times our first responsibility is to our own family.
Right.
And that's a tough pill for a lot of people to swallow. They think they're going to be out there to save the world, and in a situation like yours where it's an unseen killer, let's say. You don't know if you have it.
Right. And that's why I pay. I mean, that's not why I picked that kind of a disaster. But as it turned out, it's perfect. You don't you don't get to take the easy way out where there's a big like an overt threat and like everyone can band together. Put up fences around your whole neighborhood, and the security group's gonna attend to food, and you don't get to do that in this because people can't be together because if someone's sick and someone else is sick, and it just it creates another layer of paranoia and caution. I mean, I use the word paranoia, but there is, like you said, it's unseen. There's another layer there, and the only way to truly to completely stay away from everyone.
I'm making sure. We seem to have some, heaven forbid, some Skype issues. Jules, who runs the radio station here, is looking into changing away from Skype because we've had so many problems with it. So I look forward to that. But what is your biggest fear?
Geez, that's a great question. Boy, you had to hit me with that, didn't you? I mean, the biggest fear. Okay, that's a great. I can definitely that now, especially after working on this book. I explored so many. I discovered so many weaknesses in my own perceived great, prepping plan while I was writing this. I mean, Amazon got a lot of money out of me in terms of orders and kind of filling some gaps in terms of stuff I didn't have or thought I had enough of. But my biggest fear is being separated from my kids and family, and that could be on any level. We're not looking. It could be just a local disaster during school time, maybe. I'm lucky because I work out of the house, so I have a little more flexibility. I'm relatively close to the schools. My wife works 30 minutes away, so if something happened where the power went out, like an EMP, very very unlikely. I mean, this is like I said, this is not what I'm not dedicating my all my resources to preparing for a grid down, immediate grid down scenario. But that is my biggest fear is a subset of that, and that's just not being able to get to my kids and having them not know what's going on or what to do.
I was going to say, how old are you? Can you?
They're 11 and 14.
Have you talked to them about preparedness and a plan on what they would do if certain situations arise?
We have, but not enough. I mean, that's one of the areas of weakness, that I identified. Because it's I was going through the plan. I created a plan that we've talked about, right? And I put it in the book. This is what happens if you're at school and you can't take the bus if you're at school. I mean, the number one thing is both my kids come together. You know, their schools are pretty close, middle and in high school. I want the two of them together, and then they have choices from there. Either wait for us or go to the police station. You know, but it's complicated. You know, and I'm like, do I need to make a card to give each one to carry in their backpack? You know, will the school even let them out? You know, we've talked about it. I told my son, I'm like, just short of physically restraining you, you know, you are to leave and go seek out your sister. You know, I don't care what they say. You know, you can deal with that later. So it is my biggest fear, and it's really a tough one to kind of settle.
Yeah, because parenting changes you and changes your preparedness. When people,
right.
It's funny to see new parents, and you know, before when you're not responsible for another human being, even though you might be married,
right,
and you don't have children, you still feel almost invincible. You know, when it comes to, oh yeah, if EMP happens, or you know, this happens, or you know, we get invaded by Russia, we'll fight and we'll do this and we'll do that, and then you have children,
yeah,
and then it's like, oh my God, I can't do that. You know, we talked about before. Let's say we had a downgrade situation in the United States, and China or Russia or, you know, North Korea decide to invade the mainland here, and, you know, our militia gets called up. Would you leave your family to go fight for our country, or would you stay with them?
Yeah, that's another. I'm going to move to Indianapolis like you, so I'm in the middle. So when we land on the coast, you know, it's far enough away from me. Just kidding. It's a very good question. I'm ex-military, and I think if it was a real bona fide threat like that, I had skills needed. I would be really on the fence. I think I would have to help out somebody. But at the same time, you know, it'd be really difficult. I mean, I left active duty, you know, for this very reason. I just didn't want to be deployed constantly and, you know, be away from my family all the time. So I don't know.
Would you sit? Well, you're up in the northeast section of the United States. Would you watch them? You know, as long as you don't come across the Rocky Mountains or you don't come across the Mississippi, and you know, once they step foot across the Mississippi, then it's on. You have these, you know, invisible boundaries that they can't cross. But you can have California. We'll wait for you to take them. Listen, I'm sure there are people out there.
I'm telling you, there's a bias. There's a want to destroy California. So you know, it's there.
In the chat room, they're asking what military experience you have.
Okay, so I stopped Navy and had kind of mixed. When I graduated from the Naval Academy, I went to the Naval Special Warfare, the SEAL program. But I fractured my leg twice in training, so that did not work out for me at all. I sent out to a ship for 2 years, and then I changed career paths within the Navy and worked with the Marines as a liaison officer. He's basically I was on the ground with the Marines, helping them, you know, interface with the Navy. So I got to do a lot of cool stuff that way, and I served as an instructor, you know, as my last tour. My specialty within that whole thing was forward observation, like naval fire control, forward air control. So anything that blew up, you know, we called in on targets and helped them kind of manage the naval air assets and all that. It was pretty fun. My wife called it the gun and jump club because we were airborne qualified and we were always doing parachute operations.
The gun and jump. I thought you said junk for a minute. It's like, what are you talking about? Jump.
No.
J-U-M-P.
Yeah. Jump. Yeah, jump parachute club. She's like, that's all you guys do. You guys like blow things up, shoot, and jump out of airplanes and train. I'm like, yeah, pretty much.
What else is there in life, you know?
That's all you need.
Exactly. And Twinkies. But, so if you have, I'm not going to ask you if you own personal firearms, but
I won't tell you if I do.
Okay, good.
I'm just kidding.
What if you could, what's your opinion on the best firearms for anyone in the preparedness world? What would you have?
Oh, are people going to jump on me for this?
Oh, no. I'm an NRA instructor, so we like firearms.
Okay. Yeah, I don't want to, I don't have like very, very strong opinions. opinions about what I'm going through and determining, making a choice between different calibers. So that kind of gives away the farm that I have firearms. Or number one, I think absolutely essential. It's, I mean, and I'm not a. If I am definitely not the typical person, like an American would think, be pro. I'm not making any sense when I say that. But as ex-military and everything I've done, all the studying I've done for the books, and I've owned firearms forever, even when I was in college. So that's just part of my life. So ideal, I think something in a 3 caliber portable would be something useful that you can kind of reach out and people.
Okay.
Threats at a good distance.
So you think the farther away you can take them out, the better?
Having that option, that had been kind of a lacking point, a weakness in my configuration, and I've changed that. But the difference. So you're do you instruct pistol or all kinds?
That's do I?
Or I don't. You don't want to get into that, so don't.
No. Yeah, I have a preference for all kinds of things. So.
I do too. I mean, yeah, I haven't met a guy I didn't like, so let's put it there.
Yeah. I think the more I think you personally are your best weapon of defense. So we've got the kids in hand-to-hand combat right now.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because if you don't have a weapon, I don't want to rely on external sources for protection. Mm-hmm. So then we've recently picked up knife fighting. So I have a nice collection of SOG knives and my kids are just, all over that. My husband built a big target in the back with, I think it's 2-inch boards thick that we can go out there and included with the knives are like tomahawks and stuff too. So
those are great.
Yeah.
Personal tomahawk. Those are nasty looking weapons.
Yeah. So,
boy, it's great.
But I think the bigger the plethora of weapons that you have and know how to use, the better off you're going to be.
Yeah, I agree. And that, like I said, it comes to firearms and hand-to-hand and every aspect of it. I mean, it's a tiered layer of defense.
Definitely.
I say through. I believe there's a lot of other options as you get closer.
Yeah. Well, like my I have an AR that I built, and it shoots also 22 because I have a conversion kit, easy swap out. So now I have 2 rifles, one for defense and one for game if I need to use for hunt for food if I need to. But question in the chat room. Should people be stockpiling or just have some masks on hand, in your opinion? And if so, what kind?
Yeah, I think definitely. I think it's wise. It's very inexpensive, relatively. I would definitely go with an N95, quality. And I did research into this, and I think the surgical masks, if you can get a surgical grade mask, doesn't up the cost too much. But I think what they do is your N95 mask is more of a particulate filter.
I've seen some N100s too.
Yeah, and I haven't. I should probably look into that. N95 is kind of just the standard, but N100 would be great because that would potentially be like 100%. But the surgical grade ones are also they have more of a waterproofing. Fluid proofing, I guess you would say. So if something was directly spilled and not just sneezed on you, you'd get some added protection from that. So I would. That's what I did. I have a stock of N95, and they're surgical grade. They look blue instead of just white.
What do you think about like those? We see them all over the place, and usually it's the first thing people think of when they think of preppers or survivalists. Those like Israeli gas masks. What's your thoughts on those?
That would be, I mean, honestly, that would be great too, because your eyes, you know, it's a mucus, what they call mucous membrane. It's another infection point. So, and I think those Israeli gas masks cover that as well. Is that a full face mask? I'm pretty sure it is.
Yeah. It has a little cylinder on the nose.
Right on the side. Yeah. No, that would be ideal. I mean, not extra practical, but it probably would provide a higher level of protection. You know, I don't know what the cost is for those.
Oh, geez, you can find them pretty cheap anymore, but people don't realize those little
charcoal filter.
Yeah, they expire.
Yeah, they do expire, and it's a little bulkier. You know, it's I've worn full mop gear in the military, and it's miserable. It's the full suit. It's the masks themselves. They really they restrict your visibility. Aiming becomes a nightmare. Doing pretty much anything kind of things when you're wearing one of those. So I mean, honestly, like I think a pair of shop goggles and an N95 mask.
There you go.
Clear, because it's clear all around would be the low budget and very effective.
Well, people don't realize too, and I've noticed this when I wear mine, any facial hair I have, because when I don't shave in the morning or whatever, like for my beard and whatnot, those masks are harder to keep on.
Right.
So
yeah. And
I'm just joking, by the way. I really don't have facial hair. I'm going to get hate mail. Oh my God.
Is that why we don't? Is that?
No, I am out. Let's just move on.
Okay, sounds good.
It's a little early in the morning. Well, not for you. You've been awake like almost 5 hours now.
Too long. I'm on my second very strong cup of espresso coffee. Yes.
You people and your coffee. You crack me up. I do not drink coffee. I've attempted to occasionally, but just can't do it. I like to smell it. I will say that. It reminds me of my dad. But look, now, see, they're already starting. Don't laugh at the menopausal women. I am a menopausal woman. I can laugh about that. We have to. If not, we'll kill people. But, all right. So where can people find your books, find you? Not like stalking, like find you.
You cannot find me. No.
I threw that out there because I knew that there's going to be somebody. Oh, let's go stalk his ass.
Easy to. I'm probably the easiest prepper post-apocalyptic author to find. I don't hide. I live in a normal suburb subdivision. My books can be found. They're all on Amazon. So you can find them there. They have paperback copies. If you own a Kindle or any kind of other e-reader, iPad with a Kindle app, you can get them on there.
And you have a website.
I do. StephenConkley.com. Very original.
If you could spell that for everyone that's listening, because we'll be able to put this. It'll be on YouTube and up on MP3s and stuff like that. And they're like, how do you spell his last name?
Yeah. It's StephenKonkoly.com.
Awesome.
Yeah, and you can find links to all my stuff on there as well. News and that prepping. I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, it's called Practical Prepping. No apocalypse required. So. Yeah, I mean, it's because it's like it is my mentality. I mean, just keep it as simple as possible.
Yeah, no, I love that because we make fun of that all the time, and people are like, "Oh my God, we're gonna die!" It's like, no, you're not. It's like, oh, this isn't about doomsday here. If you want doomsday and tinfoil, well, we do like tinfoil. We do go down that road. But
I love that too. Don't worry.
Move along. Let's get back to reality here. Do your neighbors know what you do?
Yes, they do. Yeah, and
how do they feel about that?
Well, if you were to visit my neighborhood, or you somehow figure out where I live in Google Maps, Google Maps that, and you've read the.
Don't give us ideas, please.
Just it's everyone will put it together eventually. If you did that, and then you read the Jakarta pandemic, you would probably end up going, well, it's kind of looks and feels exactly the same as. I didn't stray very far in my book from what I know and where I am. I changed the names and I changed the personalities of the neighbors in the book so that I took exhaustive.
Wait a minute. I'm so and so. No, you can't kill me. And
No, I've had that. I mean, so when this came out, and then word got out, there was a wee. I thought there was a wee bit of a cooling effect in the neighborhood. Because Alex Fletcher was pretty strict about. I'm not giving you the last of my food and not having any, or I'm withholding some medications for my family. I'll give you this amount.
So in reality, you felt some of that?
A little bit, yeah, I think so. I mean, it's I live in a great neighborhood and everyone's really nice, but I wondered because it probably kind of gave people a glimpse into how I think, and I can see it. People are like looking like if my kid was sick, like really, Steve wouldn't just like give everything in his cupboard to help them, when he's fine. And
really, that's interesting.
It's a tough question, because I'm like, I would have a hard time. I mean, like I said, if someone came to my door and their kid was sick, boy, and I had a couple, like I said, these courses of antiviral therapy that I'm saving in case I get sick, I'd have a real hard time not giving that to them, to try to help, to help things, or medicine. That would be a really tough call.
Yeah, well, you open up some things people need to actually stop and think about.
Yes.
Probably wouldn't normally do that. In your everyday life, you're worried about soccer practice and, getting the laundry done and things like that. A lot of people don't like to think about such the dramatic issues that you bring up in your book.
Right. Right. I mean, most people, I know, neighbors, a lot of just friends I know, they shop kind of every other day, or I know some people that just kind of shop every day for their food. So their cupboards, they have nothing.
Yeah. Well, you bring that.
Do like a week. We always do a week, and we have another. I don't know how much in there. I mean, we're just always buying.
So on the flip side, have you had any of your neighbors come to you and say, "Hey, dude, what do I need to get ready for something like this?"
Yes, yeah. There's a couple that have done taken a lot of steps, and it's mainly because it is because of that book. It definitely is, and not because they're afraid of me, but. We don't have there's no Cold War going on here with mutually assured destruction as the key holdback. No, but yeah, I do know of a couple and other friends who have they've definitely upped their game and taken it seriously, which is great.
Yeah.
Because if everyone, like I said, if everyone just kind of did a little, things would be very different on the other end if something happened.
Oh, geez, if everybody had a garden, can you imagine?
Yeah, and we've just started a garden 3 years ago. So it's like when I wrote this book, you'll see when you get into the it's pronounced the Perseid collapse. Believe me, I didn't know that. I had to look it up after I wrote that and I decided on the title and published it. I'm like, it might be nice if I actually went into a dictionary and just made sure I'm calling it. I was calling it Perseid. I don't know why. I actually got it right somehow, but
that's cool.
But that book, that you'll see a very big difference in the preps and the different. It's basically Alex Fletcher kind of evolving. He had what he had in Jakarta, and now I realize he either has to have more or just different. And they have a garden and a compound, kind of a place out of town. It's kind of more of a bug out scenario. Where the bugging in option was just taken from him, in one fell swoop. So
I haven't hit that part yet.
Yeah, you'll see it.
Did you blow up his house or something?
No, it's even better.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. So it's something, totally different. But you see like an evolution, in the way he handles people, which is that's another huge aspect of this is how to deal with, what can you legally do and what should you do, with the people that are kind of prowling through the neighborhood. So he handles things very differently in the Perseid Collapse series based on his lessons he learned in the first book.
Yeah, the whole what can I legally do? that brings a lot of interesting conversation into play. Is it legal if you don't get caught? So, it's going to be choices that, people are possibly going to have to make. And the cool thing is, like I said, your scenario takes place in a subdivision. So usually that's a lot of places that people hit when they're out scavenging around looking for things. And
sure.
You bring a different kind of scenario into play on how they deal with it, as opposed to well, we need to put up blockades and fortify this and put up towers and, barbed wire and electric fence around the whole subdivision and stuff. And you took another route for doing that, which I think was cool. And, I've not really gotten flack for it, but I think that one thing a lot of preparedness people in general out there miss the point on is these books of fiction, because it opens your mind up to all kinds of different ways to do things, as opposed to just reading a tech manual out there.
Right. And I I took a lot of flack for certain behaviors. Alex's, the main character's behaviors in that book, and the author's a this or that, and it was all the author, and I'm like, this is a character, and it is conceivable that I had the character do and make mistakes, because I have people like, it would never, this guy made so many mistakes, it's BS, the author doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm like, this isn't a manual, this is, like you said, I wrote this, and if he'd made no mistakes, then it would be really kind of a boring book. It may make some people really happy, like he did everything right, perfect, I love it, but that's
we're not human.
I don't write that way. No one learns anything from that. Maybe they just kind of validate what they already think they know. So that was a big learning curve for me. So, I do analyze what they do, and I'm very deliberate with their mistakes and with the courses and paths they choose.
Cool. Yeah, it's definitely, you're a little different than everyone else. And I say that in a good sense.
Yeah, and I know, and I've read a number of the books, portions of it in there, and you can see it's very like it's kind of manual like in terms of what they're doing.
Yeah, definitely.
Which isn't bad, not at all.
Yeah, definitely. If you could live anywhere in the United States during a pandemic, where would you choose?
Oh, wow, that's a good one. I would probably definitely choose something a lot more rural and a lot more isolated than this right here. Something like the Jakarta, something on the level of the Jakarta pandemic, definitely. So I think there's a lot to that, and it's just I don't want to live there all year round.
Do you think being in a colder climate will help?
I think so. I think it. Yeah, I do. I think in the Jakarta pandemic, you get enough of the outside picture, but then it kind of gets cut off, in terms of when the characters get cut off from information. But I think maybe in the Perseid collapse, I refer to, I kind of like the South, I have a lot more implosion and a lot more problems occurring in warmer weather climates where people can be out on the streets all the time. And you see that. I mean, it's not across the board, but, higher crime kind of tends to gravitate toward more temperate areas. Maybe not so much in the U.S., but worldwide. So, yeah, I think a colder climate would probably be better if you were ready for it.
Yeah,
if you're not ready for it, and if you're trekking north in your shorts, your Bermuda shorts and t-shirt, you're not going to have a good time with that.
So I just gave you $300. You have no preps. What would you buy?
Ooh, $300. So I would buy I'm big on the number one thing you need is water. And the ability to have that. So I don't know what kind of scenario is surrounding that $300, but
we're in pandemic.
Oh, pandemic.
We have a theme going here.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So if you're in your house, $300, I would spend that on. I would probably spend the bulk of that on medical supplies, masks, and things like that. Some kind of weapon if you don't have one. But $300 doesn't go very far. In terms of purchasing anything. If you were in your own house, you wouldn't really have to. I don't think you'd have to worry about water. So I would, I think in that case you'd want to spend that on medical supplies and probably some herbal remedies and things to build up your immunity. So just in case something happened.
Anything there you're partial to?
In terms of remedies, or
herbal.
Yeah, you know what, we use oregano and elderberry syrup.
Oh, excellent. I love both of those. I get some oregano from Greece. I bought some from Greece. This stuff is wicked strong, like burns
the oil?
Skin.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. We buy like the P76. I think that's the Mediterranean one that it may just be a total marketing scam that's the one. I have no idea. I fell for it, so if it doesn't say P76, I'm not buying it. It won't work. But I've eaten oregano, so we have that, and we take that all. We kind of take it proactively in the winter. If I feel a little funny, or the kids feel or look a little funny, we take the couple drops, under the tongue.
And you're not talking about where they just have a funny look on their face.
No, they always
pale
they always have a funny look on their face. They'd always be drinking this stuff. No, and then the elderberry syrup, same thing with that. I think
excellent.
Yeah, and I've tasted the oregano. We grow oregano, and I've taken leaves and chewed on them. Boy, it has the same taste. Nasty.
Yeah,
nasty, and the kids kind of like it. They kind of like weird. They don't want it, but
kids
they like
weird.
it. They don't want it, and they're like, oh no, I don't want that. It's disgusting. And they're like, can I have some?
Yeah, I've seen my kids eat stuff before that it's like, oh my goodness.
Yeah,
they like that sour candy kind of stuff.
Kind of like a challenge or something.
Yeah,
but we had like last winter. Knock on wood, last 2 winter seasons, we really haven't had anyone sick, and that's when we started kind of pretty consistently taking this stuff. So I'm a big believer in it. You just gave me a new idea. My daughter, who's 20, almost 20, they do this hot pepper challenge. They tape it, put it on YouTube, and habaneros is what they work themselves up to. I might bring in some oregano leaves for them to chew on. Thank you for that. Yeah, there you go. Before we leave here, which is down to the wire, again, how can people find you and your books and all of that? All right, so you can do one of two ways. You can email me,